Hello, habari, bonjour, salam, and welcome to the Africa Power Hour. I'm your host, Nadia Abdallah, an impact-driven leader, a Pan-African, and a mental health advocate. The Africa Power Hour is a Pan-African virtual storytelling network that brings together people from all facets in Africa to talk about the importance of telling the true African story. When it comes to Africa, we are diverse in our culture, diverse in our career, and diverse in our intentions. And so today is such an exciting and bright episode, as you can see. It's exciting and bright because we have a multifaceted bombshell of a lady who is a powerhouse, not only to me, but to a lot of people and to Africa as a whole. I want to talk about Farah Esmail. Now, she is an amazing, amazing, amazing woman, but she's also a fierce woman. And what do I mean by that? She is fierce in her ways, fierce in her career, and fierce in her fitness journey, something that we all struggle with. So I'm pretty sure this episode is going to be exciting for you because you're gonna get a thing or two about who she really is. Now, I don't wanna say much and bore you all to death. So I'm going to invite and introduce Farah and let her tell us who she is, why she believes, or why I believe she is a bombshell, and why we should listen and watch her steps. Farah, hi.
Hi, Nadia. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. And you're looking bright and gorgeous and African.
Thank you. So are you. You know, we have to embrace our culture.
Definitely
We're global citizens, yet we're local citizens. And so I'm wearing, a local fashion designer who designed this for me, as are you. I mean, I love what you're wearing.
Thank you. Thank you. And what designer are you wearing?
So it's Vicky Atelier. She has some stores and she designed this for me for a Kenya at 60 event. And I thought today would be a fitting day to wear it.
It is. I'm actually wearing, her name is the Nuraline.
Okay.
Yeah, so she creates 3-piece outfits that I love. And I love African prints. I think it's a representation and it has to be colorful, just like us and our lives.
Exactly. You know, I'm beyond my initial lawyer days of wearing black and blue and embracing more color. And I know today we're going to talk about growth and the journey, and I'm really, really excited, and especially to be here with you because, from the very first time we connected, I felt we had a great connection. You're one of these women that I want in my network to grow together and build and make this continent a powerhouse like we want to do. So yes, I'm here for it with you today.
Awesome. And our theme today is defying expectations and embracing power. So before we get into all that, I'd love you to tell everyone who is Farah and what drives Farah.
So Farah is actually a multifaceted person. I think we grow up with a box. We have to be a certain way. And I think as the journey evolves over life, you don't have to be defined by that box. And I call myself a stereotype buster. I did start my journey in a very traditional way. I'm born in Kenya. And then at 16, I moved to Canada and I went to undergraduate in Toronto. And then after that, I did my law school in Canada. I have an MBA with a focus on sustainable strategy. So very early on in my life, I knew that I was impact driven. Okay, I knew that. Some people are money driven, some people are impact driven. I have in my life always had that underlying impact. And that really is my mission, my purpose. And so I started my career as a litigator. I wanted to be an environmental lawyer and save the world. But when I came out of law school, nobody was really litigating. I've actually always I see myself 20 years ahead of the game. So I actually was a corporate lawyer. And prior to that, I was litigating. So I was in the courtroom and I did a bit of that. So with that, I got a skill of learning areas very quickly. As a litigator, you have to become an expert in 2 weeks on an area. So that was something early on in my career. Thinking as a lawyer gives you different skills as well. I'm very process oriented. I think in steps, detail oriented. And these are all skills that I think have really served me well as I've transitioned in my life into other areas. And of course, I really, really have to be very grateful for my parents for pushing education. They've always supported me. And I think girls in education that is something that we need to do, and I know we're doing on this continent because women power is where it's at. So I had the benefit of having a good education. So when I did my MBA, I was very interested in what's now called ESG. Again, 20 years ahead of the game. Nobody was talking about it. At that time, it was called People, Planet, Profit. So, I was quite early, 20 years ahead of the time in this area. And I was at the time dating someone who was living in the US. So I moved to the US and I was looking for opportunities in this area of ESG because I knew this was an area that I needed to be in. Really, the World Bank was the only one training people at the time. So I actually ended up in a role that, has been a role that I'm so grateful for. I ended up being head of legal for a tech innovated e-learning company, which, in COVID was huge. But again, I was doing this in 2023. Again, ahead of the curve, where I like to be really. And so basically I joined this company. I was there for 7 years. I was managing all of the legal operations. We were running schools, 22 schools around the US, and corporate governance was a big part of it because these were nonprofit schools and we were a for-profit management company running these schools. And after 7 years, we saw it exiting to Pearson at that time. So, I'm going through a very long journey of who I am. But I think the story of a person and how they got to where they are is really important. So at that time then, my relationship also ended. And so in that period, I had to decide, what do I do? And I went back to Toronto, which is where my family was living at the time. And for 3 months, I went back and I worked in the Toronto District School Board, again, working in board relations, corporate governance. This was an area now that I'd done a lot of work in. But then I think, opportunity came calling and I saw this role posted to come back to Kenya. And I'd actually not come back to Kenya for many years, more because it was very difficult. You need like at least 10 days to come out here between flights. And realistically, when you work in the US, for anyone who's worked in the US, vacations are kind of looked down upon and taking that time. And I was actually very busy, so I didn't really have the time. But I came to climb Kilimanjaro in 2010 and I came through Nairobi and I was like, wow, I mean, this is, and I'm like, I think, and I'd always had this thing about coming back, but I just hadn't had the opportunity. And that really brought me back to the country. And when I landed at the airport, I could feel it. Like, I don't know when you feel when you land in Nairobi, the smell. I was like, okay, this familiar smell from when I grew up. And my body felt like this is at home. So really, when I saw this opportunity to work at Bridge International, I flew to New York to meet with the founders. They were raising funds. So Bridge was one of the very early social enterprises in Kenya. And coming out of Bridge have been all these other social enterprises. So as I mentioned, I was very interested in impact, social enterprise. Really working with issues at the bottom of the pyramid, working with the masses, trying to uplift the level of everyone. That's really where I see my purpose. So I was really excited about this role because Bridge was running 400 schools in the slums of Kenya. And but they were a bricks and mortar model, which meant unlike what I'd done in the US, it was still tech enabled. They were using technology for delivering the curriculum to the teachers. But yet it was still a very traditional organization in that there were schools. Look, these were in the slums. We have to keep in mind, Bridges had a lot of critiques that have come through over the years. So I know when I went in there, it was still quite early. We had a lot of things that we were building at the time, like how do we deal with land rights issues in Kenya? Bridge would target areas saying, this is where we want our school to be. And then as the team supporting it, we had to figure out how do we get that land? Have the succession issues been? So through that, I came back in 2012 and it was a very interesting reintegration as someone coming back from the diaspora into Kenya, right? I've been living and working on the East Coast. We're really fast paced. We have certain culture. The roads don't have potholes. So
social health.
But in all of this, you also realize, I took a course with Harvard on really entrepreneurship in emerging markets. And these are opportunities for people to come back, right? Where the gaps are is where the opportunities lie. And education, healthcare. These are definitely two areas. Finance, like funding to people. So you see that these are the opportunities on this continent, right? And especially in Kenya. So I already knew if you uplift the education, this is where you're going to grow everyone, right? So education has always been something that I've been interested in. And part of the story I didn't tell you about it, because it came back to me, is when I did come to climb Kilimanjaro, on the way back to Washington, I sat next to somebody who was part of Vision 2030.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And for 8 hours on the flight, he kept saying, he talked about brain drain and, Kenyans leaving and Africans leaving the continent. And we need these people to come back and really help build, not in a patriarchal or paternalistic way of we know better, but it's like you've seen systems and you have to build them in an African way, in an African solution. So that stayed with me as well. So when in 2012, when this role came up, I was like, okay, like I'm going to go back and the world is my oyster and why not?
Why not? Yeah.
So I did come back. So subsequently, after that, I spent quite a long time continuing to be an in-house role. So I was in Bridge. I worked for a manufacturing company. So I've worked in very, I would say, male-dominant, harsh environments. My last in-house role was with Gardaworld, who had acquired KK Security, and I was head of legal and HR for 9 countries in Africa. That was like probably the toughest sector. I mean, security is not an easy environment. We constantly had strikes. I mean, strikes at the US Embassy right after the Riverside attack. I mean, I'm like, why would you strike now? We have like an emergency crisis in the country. So I think, over the years, I'd spent a lot of time in these areas of senior leadership, risk management, building out teams, corporate governance. Always really, as an in-house lawyer, it's very different from being an outside lawyer. So I have to be within the strategy and the operations and really trying to, every day a new issue hits your table and I have to react very quickly, come up with creative solutions. Part of it also has been about bringing in best systems and processes into an organization and always improving. And that really now ties into my passion as well, which is bodybuilding. So on the corporate side, to finish that introduction on who I am, I then actually moved into the corporate governance space. And I was really the head of Kenya for the Sadar Group, which is a South African company. It was actually the first time I broke the mold of being an in-house lawyer or a lawyer. For all these years, I said, I'm trained as a lawyer. This is what I do. I come from an Indian Kenyan family where, you have to be a lawyer and a doctor to do well. And really, this is what my profession was. But after a long time, I realized, look, I'm more than that box. I can do other things. I'm very good at business development. I love people. I love connecting. So I then, from 2019, all through COVID, was working for this corporate governance company. And I worked a lot with the Nairobi Securities Exchange and their Ibuka program, which, do you know their Ibuka program? So basically, it incubates people who want to list because the Securities Exchange is all about getting people out there listed. And then really during COVID, as we find, corporate governance is not something people were spending money on. So I then, after that, joined Boyden East Africa, where I'm now co-owner. And Boyden is... it's an international search firm. So we have operations really in 40 countries, 70 offices, and we have the East African franchise. And I'm still very much in the talent board advisory and the talent both being executives like C-level, so CFOs, CEOs. I look to bring high quality talent to companies growing in the region. And then look at also bringing in board directors to help at the board level, and then also board advisory support. So that's really what keeps me mentally stimulated. Once I moved to Kenya, and maybe you want to go there, I kind of started this new passion of bodybuilding. And I've always been an athlete. One of the things I found about growing up in this country, in the schools I went to, is at 3 o'clock every day, we'd stop whatever we're doing and go play the sport. And so I grew up playing netball and hockey. I actually went to Zimbabwe to play hockey for Kenya. I then played squash all through law school because I've always found that has been my key to balance, is having a physical side to the mental side. It drains all the craziness going on in my mind and I focus on it. So, I went through all these different sports. I have lots and lots of sports equipment of all different types because I like challenging myself and picking up new things. When I lived in Baltimore, which is where I worked for the e-learning company, Washington and Baltimore are very big running cities. So I started running marathons. So I've run 5 marathons. And when I came back to Kenya, so while I lived in the US, I'd gone to a bodybuilding show. when I watch these women on stage, I'm like, wow, these are not like, you know, what you see in the fashion models who are, you know, very thin. And, you know, I'm like, please eat. And, you know, and now today we're getting a better representation of women. But, you know, back in the day, it was, you know, like what came down the runway was like, women don't look like this. We're different shapes, we're different colors, but also women are strong and we don't want to be portrayed as something that's going to get blown away. I saw these women on stage. I was like, wow, I mean, the confidence, the strength, the beauty. But that's what you see on on the stage, and you don't see what goes behind all of that, like how that's how do you get to that stage? So that was kind of, you know, something that I developed when I came here was I wanted to be a bodybuilder. And I walked around and I didn't see any coaches here. I mean, this was very early. So I'm really a pioneer in bodybuilding in this country. I had to go to the States to get a coach just by luck. I think things happen. There's I think universal timing or some timing that happens. They just happened to be a show that was a Muscle Mania show here in 2014. And I did my first show, and then really that started my career, and I'm happy to talk more about it. So I have this corporate side. I then took on this passion for bodybuilding, and I have been doing this now for 10 years. And I've won Miss Kenya 3 times here locally. I've competed in Las Vegas, in South Africa, in Portugal, in England. And this is what I do now internationally. I compete locally. And to continue my multifaceted journey, I recently now am also a reality TV star. I was on The Real Housewives of Nairobi on the 2nd season, which was breaking another stereotype, I guess. I'm a corporate person. I'm not a TV star, but I really wanted to, again, put myself out there, take myself out of my comfort zone, and break the box again and break stereotypes and do something else that was going to challenge me. And so there's all of this going on. I really have multifacets because I feel that women are dynamic, we're powerful, and we don't have to be just one thing. So I like to present myself as really this multifaceted, stereotype buster individual who is a Pan-African living in Kenya.
Wow, you truly are multifaceted. And what did you say, stereotype buster? Man, I think I'm gonna take that because I feel like I have busted a lot of stereotypes about myself. But we're here for you. And when you were speaking, all I could think about is, Farah, how do you balance that diverse career, passions, and still maintain excellence?
Balance is the key. And I think I'm constantly trying to balance. You know, they always say in life, you've got all these balls you're balancing and some drop and you got to keep throwing them up. So, you know, you've got your family, you've got your career, you've got your relationships, you've got like, you know, your hobbies. Like, so there's all these things. And balance, I think, is the key. And everyone's quest is for balance. I think I can't say I've balanced it all. I know sometimes some things drop and I try and push that ball up again. But also sometimes you just have to push everything else and focus on something. So sometimes it's, I know I'm not focusing on this. Maybe it's not the relationship, but the career is coming first. And, you know, women do this. Sometimes we have to. Or I know I'm like, so right now I'm training for a show in Milan in November because I haven't competed since last year. And I love to get on stage. It's an absolute passion. The focus of going to that goal really drives me. So I know I'm spending more time right now on my training, so some things have to go. So it is, I always believe it's about conscious decision making. Balance is about, you know, if you need to be conscious. It's when you're not conscious about what's dropping, that's the problem. So if you're keeping a tally of, I know, or you haven't talked to certain friends in a while and, you know, you've been focusing on something, you're like, okay, I know, I'm doing that, but I need to come back. So it's, if you're conscious, I think maybe that helps, but balance is a quest. And generally, for me, balance is also about, my brand is about mind, body, soul. It's about a balance between the career, the body, and the mindset and the spirit. And they're not all. I keep trying to balance the three. It's like this, you know, the trinity I'm trying to juggle between. I got to keep doing it. So the working out definitely helps with the balance. If I'm not working out, if I go a few weeks without, I mean, I'm going to feel out of whack. So I know for me, working out helps me balance. I also know for me that while I'm a very extroverted individual, I get a lot of power by reflecting and going in and having some solo time and space of myself. So if I don't do that, and if I go out for 2 weeks every night, I'm going to be drained, and that won't be balanced. So it's also about knowing yourself and how to balance yourself. Everybody's different, you know? So yeah, I don't have the answer for you on balance. I still am trying to balance.
Which is honestly, I was actually going to ask you, do you believe in the, you know, work-life balance? Because I feel like it doesn't exist, but I love how you talked about being conscious of what needs your attention and what doesn't, you know, and it's something that a lot of us, including myself, I juggle with. Sometimes I'm just like, you know, okay, I'm focusing on my career, my relationship is non-existent, my friends keep complaining, this and that.
Yes.
But then I'm also like, okay, but I have to put in that energy there. I love that point on being conscious. And do you think, you know, we're in a rat race world. Everyone's running after something to gain something, to be somewhere with somebody or just for themselves. Do you really think people have time to be conscious of their steps and intentions these days?
I think that's the problem, right? You got to sit back and go, are you doing things consciously? We do so much stuff on autopilot. I mean, here it's hard to, like in Toronto, I'll drive, and because there's no potholes, I'll just drive and not think about it. I don't think you can drive that way in Kenya. You know, there's not going to be someone here or someone cutting you off. But that's the thing. We operate a lot on autopilot. We'll go to work. We'll do these things. You know, I don't have children, but again, that drives a lot of your agenda for a lot of people. Like, you know, you get home, you're doing this. So we're in autopilot, and so it's a luxury, actually, I would think, to be able to really sit back and go, am I doing this? But I think that's where the mindset comes in. So making time to reflect. And as we talk about leadership and Pan-African leaders and what makes good leaders in the talent space, when I'm looking at good, effective C-level leaders, I'm looking at, are they reflective? Look, you could mess something up, but if you're reflective and you reflect on it and you say, well, next time I will do this. So that's the mindset piece. So when I look at strong leaders, I also hire actually people that when I look at two candidates and one is like an athlete or they have interests outside of work, they're a competitive athlete, oh my God, they can stick to goals and process.
Yes.
When I have two equal competitors or for a role, I'm actually going to pick the person who is an athlete, has outside interests, because they might know how to balance their life better. If I'm just the person who's just driven at work, like I said, we're complex. People are complicated. And so also with today's business environment as it is, it's a lot more complicated. Boards are getting into trouble a lot more. It's not as easy. So you need more complicated people. It's kind of this issue of homeostasis, like in a body, right? So we have all these systems to drive us to homeostasis. And that's the same way in an organization, whether it be at the management level or at the board level. But you need complex individuals who think creatively, who will respond to today's world. We're no longer in the 1950s and 60s. Things are complicated. I mean, just look at carbon issues and like tax issues and multi-jurisdictional, and the world has become one now. So it's complicated. These are all things we have to keep in mind when we're looking at leadership.
You mentioned something. I just wanted to point it out that I think, was it a Sunday? Your driver wasn't around.
Yes.
And I was watching your stories, and she was like, so like, oops, I'm driving today. And then as you were talking, you just bumped into one of the potholes. Then you went into another one. Then you went to the third one, and I was like, oh my God. So when you talked about potholes, I'm just like, you can't drive on autopilot in Kenya. No. You just can't.
No, it's actually a good thing though, right? Because that's the problem is when we do, and so you have to be a conscious driver in Kenya. Someone's going to cut you off, or some boat is going to come from somewhere.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. Like, I think it was funny. And then, you know, you didn't even finish your sentence and boom, you just bumped into.
But I also see people doing it. Actually, it was a message more. Well, there were two messages in that thing. One was, please don't drive and do that. Two was, it was a Sunday and I'd gone out to this Bond party, which was really fun.
Nice.
And I came home late, but when you talk about balance, okay, so I had my fun, but it was Sunday. I'm sure most people were eating nyama choma, but I went to the gym because I had a goal. I'm training. I have a show. So no matter how tired I was dragging myself. The driver wasn't there. That's fine. I'm driving myself to the gym. But so those were a few messages. But part of the message you got, which was dangerous behavior.
Yeah, because people do it all the time. It's like, so I'm on my way here. Anyway, I always say to each their own.
Yes.
So I want us to go into empowerment and support. And, you know, as a successful woman in really multiple and multifaceted fields, How important is it, or has it been for you to have a strong support system, other women,
Yes.
for yourself, but also for your community that you build?
Yeah. I must say it's grown. So female support for me has grown.
Okay.
I've worked in very male dominant environments. I still don't see the gender issue.
Yeah.
Like, meaning I'm in a boardroom, they're all men. I'm the only leadership.
Yeah.
That was the case at KK Security. I present myself as an equal on the table. Okay. I don't want to see that, because I think when you start sitting back and saying, I'm a female, I'm not being treated the way I am. Look, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. It's very much there. I think over the years, though, I have found more female support. Like, we'd have these networking events. It would be me and all these women in a room. And I'd be like, I don't know what to do with myself, because my interaction was always in these very male dominant environments. It was awkward when I go into a room full of women. I'm very comfortable now in a full, and I don't know if you've had that experience, but coming from maybe government, right? Even though I think they're attaining the 30%, but
Are they?
well, I don't know. Have you had that experience?
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, it was more of, because I was raised by a bunch of women. I've always been around women, but then I walked into, the government job, and it was all males. Not only was it all males, but it was all old males. And I'm there, this colorful young lady, and it was hard. I didn't know what to do with myself up until 1 year later. And now I walked in and I'm like, okay, now I know. And then when I left government, I was just like, no. So that's why I started networking with a purpose.
Yes.
To kind of like bring myself back, get my mojo back. Because you tend to change from time to time with the different, I would say, experiences that happen in your country. I was about to say country. Oh my God. Experiences in your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is something. So, there's a lot of parlance now about being in your masculine or being in your feminine and doing all of that. So yeah, I've been in my masculine for a lot, and now really embracing the feminine, bringing in the feminine networks, and it's very different, and it's a really nice thing to see, but to have, look, women are competitive with themselves as well, right?
Yes.
And I just came off a show where you will talk about where this happens. But when you have, and this is why I love you so much, when you have collaborative women that are growing the network of women, supporting each other, I think it's a very different feel. But not saying that, look, you have to have men and women working together. And everywhere I've seen, like, even when I've been at boardrooms or in businesses, the women who are succeeding are who have male sponsors who will move them up the ladder, right?
Thank you. I am glad you have said that, because a lot of women usually say, I've been supporting my, but personally, my journey has been male.
Joe was the one who brought you. I know Joe quite well. Yes.
Male sponsors. Ever since up until today, it's been the male sponsors who actually drop my name somewhere, give the best recommendation. I'm glad. Finally, I'm glad someone said it.
No, but it's true. And you can't just be like, we're women, we're going to dominate. Look, it's about, and that's the whole purpose behind the masculine and the feminine too have to work together. And I'm not saying all females are female and all males, but it's about the soft and the hard. So when I say that, it's, for instance, when I first started down my legal career and I wrote my first demand letter as a young female lawyer. And it was like, dear so-and-so, please, thank you, da-da-da-da-da. It was flower. The senior partner looked at it and went, what is this? Like, chop all this stuff.
Okay.
This is too flowery. Get to the point. Be strict. Like, okay. So that's how I was trained.
Okay.
But over the years, I've learned that was the masculine energy coming through. And over the years, I've learned, and it's been something as I look at shadows and what I need to improve myself is, I'm like that. I'm very cutting, get to the point, no manenos, let's get to business.
Yeah.
And you actually have to come with more flowers now. So I'm trying to relearn my flowers, to be honest, and wearing more bright colors. I'm moving away from my black suits and gray suits and embracing my feminine. And I, it's all a learning journey. So I took on that mold, that was the mold of being a lawyer.
Yeah.
And over time, I've been growing as an individual and changing this mold and breaking the mold and stepping out of it. So, I have labels. I'm a female, Kenyan, Indian, bodybuilder, lawyer, firstborn, all these things. These are my labels.
Yeah.
But I think through life, you have to stop breaking the labels and become who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
It's true, but I feel like, oh my God, I'm a firstborn as well. A firstborn, first girl from my community to like really reach very high places. And there's so much expectations. And sometimes you're just like, you know what, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stereotypes that are there, the expectations that are there. But it's again, even when I'm dating, some guys usually say that, you know, I'm too masculine. Or my friends would also say that, you know, you have like big whatever energy, you know? And I'm just like, no, it's because I had to always bring my A game. The people who have mentored me, trained me, didn't give me a chance to be like, oh, you know, I'm this and that. But it was more like, I want this. This is who I am. And this is how you're going to accept me. And this is what I demand. So it tends to like reflect on your relationship.
It's that consciousness. So now you're conscious.
I'm
So
conscious.
you need that energy to get to where you are. What I'm
Yes.
saying is there's no bad or good energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that energy, that's a driving force.
Yeah.
Settling into your feminine energy is about going with the flow. There's no way I can go as a flow as a senior lawyer, as you know, as a counsel. And you couldn't do that in government.
I couldn't.
So, but now if you're conscious and you're conscious of when to use which energy, right? You need to get stuff done. You got into your masculine.
Yes.
And you need to try and... Again, I haven't mastered this, but as I've gone through my journey, I've learned that these are some of the things, and also how people perceive you.
True.
You know, I went to the recent TEDx in Kitisuru, and really interesting. Great that we have TEDx here now. And one of the women was talking also about just, how you show up, like your fashion sense, right? That in itself says so much, right? And she was actually talking about it in the sense of athletes now walking into the changing room. If you look at LeBron James, for instance, you'll see, depending on the importance of the game, what they'll wear. Are they wearing just like casual stuff? The game's not that important. Are they like decked out in a suit? What's going on? Then you know. Like today, we're talking about Pan-African. So, you know, we have to consciously dress for it. Now, politicians do it really well. Like if you look at the politicians, they've mastered this.
They have.
So I think my message is consciousness. Consciousness in everything you do. And why are you in that label? Like, you know, so that's what you're doing, and you're doing this every day. Why are you doing it? And I think, again, I can sit here and tell you about it, but I haven't mastered it. I also try and do it. There's things I do in autopilot still.
I relate. Personally, I think it has to do a lot with also my community. So as much as I've suppressed that, but there are some places I see myself, like I love cooking. I love it. So when my friends come over and I'm cooking, like from a starter to main course to dessert, I'm laying the table, I'm having everything there, and they're just like, okay, this doesn't happen.
I'm waiting for the invitation, by the way.
All right, so I'll make sure I cook for you. But now
Swahili dishes.
Yes.
I love anything with coconut.
Really? Okay.
So my dad was born in Zanzibar.
Oh, nice. So you guys have eaten the more authentic, the most authentic.
Yes.
Well, I'll make for you samaki wa kupaka.
Amazing.
Rice, coconut rice. And some maembe. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll plan for that. But now, before I go into anything else, I want to talk about something very important. Something very important that maybe most of you all don't know about, but I am such an avid Real Housewives of Nairobi fan. But season 2 for me personally was the most exciting, the most important for me to watch every episode without missing it, including the reunion. Now, you, my friend, were part of Real Housewives of Nairobi.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that before I hit you with some questions?
Before you hit me about the questions. So as I mentioned, this was really out of my comfort zone. This was not something, I didn't grow up going, I want to be on reality TV. But when the opportunity came to me, there was two things. One was, when I'm 80, I can laugh at it. I'm going to watch the reruns and go, ha, ha, ha. And then look at the fashion, go, I did well on the fashion. But it was really something where I thought, look, the whole show really is about putting together women in a city who come from different walks of life and put them together and see how they interact. So it's not like when I go to a networking organization, I meet all these people in like who are lawyers, or I meet in my likes. These are people coming from different backgrounds. I have felt that having been raised in Nairobi exposed me to a lot of multicultural and lots of different types of people. And then growing up in Toronto after that and living in Toronto again, super multicultural. So, you know, I get along with people, all ages, all types, not an issue. But this was challenging. My whole role in it was I wanted to show an alternative lifestyle. I wanted to show a corporate, okay? A corporate, but also an entrepreneur. You know, I'm moving down, as I'm breaking my mold, I'm moving down my entrepreneurial journey too. So I co-own F45, I'm looking to launch a meal prep, my gym line. So there's a lot I want to do. It's time and balance to do all of it, right? As we talk.
Yeah.
So I really would want to go down this journey, but I still need the corporate side for my mental stimulation. So, you know, I was a very different type of housewife.
Okay.
And for me, it's not about the bags and you know, the cars. I spend more on my gym equipment than my car, to be honest. My wealth is really my health. That was the messaging I was there for.
Nice.
And that's really why I did it.
Yeah.
And that's why I was there.
Okay.
It maybe went in a different direction. but
we got the message.
You got the message?
Yeah,
so,
the
you know,
message
like
is
I held, we on the show, we get to have 2 events that we hold. And my personality, as you see, is very diverse. Yes, I love fitness, but I love fashion. I love using my mind. I like being mentally stimulated.
Yeah.
Like when I went to the TEDx, I felt like I had food for my brain that day. It was great.
Yeah.
And I'm a very social person. I go out a lot. I like meeting people. So I'm not just this gym goer who sits in the gym or I sit at my desk. And that's what I'm saying. I'm this multifaceted person, and I wanted to bring that to the show.
Okay.
I do different things, and you can be whatever you want to be, right?
Agreed.
And so my first event was actually my fitness wellness life. Let me bring that to the public. This is an event I would love, and I thought maybe the women would love. Maybe it wasn't well received, but it was all about going to F45, having a workout, then eating a healthy meal, and then having a nice detox bar. And I curated the drinks like what I would have when I went to Mexico. They had this green goddess, like fresh drink. It wasn't appreciated as well as I'd liked it to have been, but that is part of my brand and part of my lifestyle that I was bringing to the show. So maybe some people liked that.
We did.
You did? And then the second one was more glam, you know, with my pink poofy dress. It was my, it was in my feminine.
Yeah, you were in such a feminine space. How did that, like for me as well, that was I was surprised, but it was like, Farah looks really cute and girly, and I'm like, I've never seen this side of you.
Actually, I've been wearing a lot of pink, and my hashtag is actually Barbell Barbie Kenya, which really has been, you know, it's like, yes, I have the fierceness of the bodybuilding, but I'm still a woman. I'm still, you know, and I still like the Barbie stuff. I love pink. So I've actually grown into my pink stage.
Nice.
And I've got a whole bathroom decorated in pink at my house. If you come to it. Yeah, so I don't know where this happened, but like I said, I'm moving into my feminine, and I absolutely love the color pink. Like it just...
it's very soft.
It's soft. So, and again, when you wear it, and that's, I was going to that event, it was about softness. It was about queens and kings and crowns. That was the name of the event.
Yeah.
It didn't end up that way, but that was...
The coffin. I just had to say that. I had to say that. The coffin. Oh my God. I saw the coffin. I'm like, okay, where I come from, that's a bad omen.
Okay, but you know, this is the GTC. It's just open. It's a high security building, right? Next to the Marriott. I don't even know how Dr. C got that in there. Like, honestly... I don't know.
But it was interesting. Let me tell you what I loved the most about that particular episode and that event is that you held your shit together, girl. Like, if I was in your position, I would have lost my shit. Coming to that, do you think in real essence, Real Housewives of Nairobi, in that particular scene and in your episodes, it really did magnify and highlight the importance of women supporting women?
I think the show is about it. And it is, I mean, that was my main fight on the show as well, apparently. I think my whole issue is, how do you do it? Which forum or presence, and it's not about throwing things at people or doing that. It's about trying to talk it out. And I know, I mean, again, I know it's a challenge to do that, but it's how you respond to situations, right? So, you know, I think the purpose is to put these 5 women together, and we're supposed to support our businesses and work together. But realistically, we've just met these people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, and everyone's personality is different.
It's different, yes.
So I'm very cautious. I'm a Taurus. It takes me a long time. I have these onion layers and I let you in. Unless your energy pierces right through and you have an amazing energy, and I'm like, okay. I take people in very slowly generally and get to know them, especially in a room of, you know, 5 other people I've never met. I need to judge the room, what's happening. And that is the way to do it generally. I mean, you can't just go start trusting everyone, you know, because we know that there's people in this world that are out to do things just for themselves. So I tried in this show to just be myself, which is, I was the peacemaker. I don't like confrontation. I prefer that we talk things out. And if absolutely I had to remove myself, I would if I felt, I needed to.
Yeah.
And that's how I approached the show. But yeah, it was a great learning experience.
It was. And I could see also it tapped into a huge Pan-African audience. Like when you share your stories, I can see people from South Africa, people from Nigeria,
From Rwanda.
And so my thing is, for those who were watching across the Pan-African reach, what message do you want to tell them based on your participation in Real Housewives of Nairobi? Because I'm sure some might have been confused, some might have received what you had intended to put out. But what do you want to tell them?
I think my message is that there's so many different types of people out there. You have to be conscious in how you interact with other people. And, you're going to meet people where maybe you'll have glass run-ins with, right?
Exactly.
But it's how you respond. So really the messaging is conscious in your interactions, conscious in your response. And I think that's going to get you through life and also, look, it is drama.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying these women will all do this if you're sitting in a room with them. Yeah. It definitely was a representation of different women in the city.
And thank you for representing and being yourself personally. And I've told you this, I loved how you were yourself, you were grounded, and, you stuck to your own horns and you're like, this is who I am. This is what I stand for, and this is what I live by. So
thank you.
So kudos.
Thank you.
And I want us to get into leadership and impact right now. As a senior strategic advisor, you help a lot of clients when it comes to sustainable growth, right?
Yes.
And so what leadership qualities do you consider essential for lasting impact?
Yes, so that's a very good question. And the lawyer side of me says it depends. Leadership is complicated now. The leaders who were good leaders before may not succeed in the new Africa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes. I agree.
I'll tell you what I look for when I hire talent for the region that are going to be that X factor talent, and we're bringing leaders into the country. International mindset is really important. We can't be tunnel, narrow focused, and you have to know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
More because you may not think that's great and we don't want to do that. It's not because what's in the world is great and what we're doing in Africa is not. It's because you want to eliminate some of those things and you have a chance to do it better.
Yeah.
Because, we're coming in the wave now. So there was, Europe, then it went to the US, then it's going to India was 15 years before and they were going through their revolution. And it's now the time for Africa. And we're fixing and doing all the stuff that we can do it properly, right? International mindset, understanding what's going on. I do think some international training or focus internationally, living in another country is really important when I'm looking at talent. There's a lot of debate about, do you need to have an MBA and all of that? And still in traditional roles, it gets you over the line. When I interview candidates, we have non-traditional, out of the box. And if you're the superstar who's not educated in traditional ways, right? But are a superstar, I'll still bring you in.
Okay.
But it depends on the client who's like, I want an MBA, we're still in a traditional mentality.
Yeah.
So education is still important. And whether it is, if you went through everything and then just do a certificate at Harvard, after COVID, that was the amazing thing. And I did this great course at Harvard that I didn't have to fly all the way to. You can now do these courses and just add on, even if you were you didn't go to university. Just show us that you're improving and looking at people who are interested in their professional development.
Okay.
Have you taken additional courses? So again, you got to keep up with the world. You can't just be sitting on your laurels saying, I did this degree in 1999 and I'm great at it. We need people who are people. They're going to go around and talk to your people. They understand people. They have an element of HR. They have to understand financials. The world does operate on financials. And more importantly, coming from an ESG mindset, right? I mean, I come back the full circle because governance, making sure your social and environmental impact is so important. So if you just don't even think about this stuff, you're going to get bitten, right? So you need to, as a new leader, be thinking about these things coming into an organization. And then really looking at region. You always coming in going, where is my regional Pan-African reach? And then, international reach potentially. But the synergies across Africa and building across Africa, like a lot of companies now coming in. So you got to come in with a strategic mindset of growth and it's regional. I'm thinking if I've covered everything else, I talked about somebody who balances their life well because, I think gone are the days where we have a leader with a big pot belly who sits and smokes and drinks. And I mean, those are the leaders of the past.
Yes.
Right? They sit in their office, they sit and they drink and they have this pot belly and they eat badly. This guy's not going to have the energy to deal with today's companies. We're fast moving.
Yeah.
We need somebody who is a healthy leader. You know, when I was at KK, we actually put in a gym membership for the senior leadership because we focused on that. I worked for a leader who was focused on health and wellness.
That's good.
Those kind of initiatives is what we need in companies, like pushing your team. We're still behind here in Kenya on the whole connection between insurance and wellness, where you get insurance benefits for being a wellness participant, right? That's growing. I think there's some companies doing that.
Yeah, and some insurance as well.
And some insurance are doing that, but it's still behind. So those connections, making sure your larger population. Also, we have to learn how to deal with the Gen Zs and you know, the Gen As, or what are they? Like, you know, like...
Gen Alphas.
And then, so you got to also deal with how do you, no longer this whole system of come to work, sit at your desk and dock time. Flexible leaders who can govern in a flexible schedule. You don't want someone to just show up and sit on their desk but be on Instagram. So these are all the things we're looking at, leaders who are successful today. It's a different leader from what it used to be. You know, walk around, understand people, be very strategic, you know, really be able to be good at governance, good at process, procedures. They really have to have it all. I mean, to be a successful leader in Africa today that I'm hiring.
A holistic approach.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's holistic. And that's going to be successful if you're missing some of those things. But the biggest thing is fast moving. We're moving fast on this continent now.
We are. I feel like I can't keep up. Like and especially if you're in tech.
Yes.
You're dealing with wellness. You're dealing with the only thing in Africa that is not moving fast is politics.
Yes.
Still stagnated, still slow, but everything else. So I'm hoping we're going to have holistic leaders as well.
I'm waiting for you to be the president one day.
Amen. So I came to terms with the fact that I need to give myself like 8 more years because, you know, people don't want to leave. So after 8 years, definitely I'm going to be there. And I hope you're going to vote.
Yes.
For me.
Yes. All right, let's mark this on the calendars.
Yes, we're going to. It's going to be 2032.
Okay.
Yes, that's when you're going to hear Her Excellency Nadia Abdallah.
Excellent.
So I want us to talk about your Pan-African approach to stretching opportunities or creating opportunities or bringing in opportunities and fostering a culture of success. You just touched on there's something happening or you are on a board.
So
can you talk to me about that?
So I guess I wouldn't call myself an ambassador for Pan-Africanism or for Africa, but I do find that the power is shifting to Africa and is moving. And again, I arrived here early, but I always do things early. And a lot of the people moving back from the diaspora, they see it. You know, we're getting a lot of investments in the country. So I've just been appointed on an advisory board there's going to be a symposium at the Monk Business School in Toronto, at the University of Toronto next year. And again, it's dialogue around investments into Africa. So Canada is very traditional, very conservative. So we get investments from the British, we get investments from the Americans. But again, so it's really to foster that. And having lived in Canada, I have that relationship as well. So that's really about bringing in investments, making this look attractive. You know, I'm at different places where like Nicole Murphy was just here from the US. Again, the tourism board is trying to make Africa look attractive again and Kenya look attractive. So there's different elements, you know, there's the music side, the tourism, the business side, and I want to be in those conversations. And you know, my big thing is attracting people to come to Africa and invest. I'm always asked, even by other firms and companies, like, should we be in Africa? I'm like, you're not here yet. What are you doing? Like, you know, so you have to be in Africa. And even Arnold, and if we're talking about bodybuilding, his goal was to have a bodybuilding show on every continent, and he came to South Africa as well. So you have to be on the continent. You know, you can't be doing a global footprint without being in Africa. And so really, where I can, whether it's in small conversations or large conversations, I think we need to be promoting that. And really, I'm talking the talk. I mean, I moved back. I could have lived in North America and you know, done what I was doing there. But I saw the future. There's a lot that could be done here. This is a beautiful country. It's a wonderful continent with so much that we need to grow. And really, if we just built regional Pan-African contacts companies, we can survive on our own. We don't need to be outside of Africa.
Yeah, we definitely can.
So we just need a lot of visionaries to come together to have that vision, build our African leadership, as we've talked about, you know, having leaders who have that vision. And I truly believe in that. I truly believe in that vision.
There's somebody who told me, if Africa is not part of your strategy, you have no business being in Africa, being an African.
Well, or even like you're not global.
Yeah, you're not global, because right now, anyway, I love the fact that growing up, you know, like I grew up watching cartoon that had no representation and seeing people and reading magazines that had no representation. And now everybody wants to be us. And that's so cool.
Yeah.
And the most beautiful part about everything is, as I said, Africa is diverse. Like, we are Kenyans. This is how we are. It doesn't mean that every Kenyan looks like a runner. You know, I get a lot of people saying, oh, are you Kenyan? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, no, what are you mixed with? And I'm like, no, can we just start with, I'm Kenyan?
I get the same thing.
Yeah,
like,
we don't need to know what
Kenyan.
else. Yeah, you know, oh, why are you not tall and slim? And I'm like, well, we have different ancestors.
Yeah. But that's an interesting question, because that came up a lot in the show. Is it because you speak Swahili? Is it because you live here? Do you... I mean, it is an interesting. I mean, what would you say makes someone a Kenyan? Because I actually want to know, because it was questioned about me, and I said, look, I've competed for Kenya.
Yeah.
I've won medals.
Yeah.
You know, I hold a Kenya passport. Is that what it is? Is it that I want to bring, I'm an ambassador for Kenya. I'm bringing people to Kenya. I mean, so you're a patriot because you promote it.
Yeah.
What do you think makes someone Kenyan?
I don't know. I just think what is our heritage. You know, because our heritage has to start from somewhere. It doesn't matter where they were, like our great-great-grandparents or whatever. It doesn't matter. But the fact that we have family, you have a bloodline, or if it's a culture that is in this country and you were born here or you came in here and became, I think that's enough. Yeah. You don't need to either be of a certain tribe or look a certain way or be a certain person to be Kenyan. And, you know, whenever someone tells me that, they tell me like, oh no, but you know, you could be South African. And I'm like, can we just stop?
Yes.
Like, I'm Kenyan. My grandfather was Kenyan. My grandmother was Kenyan. My mom was Kenyan. Like, I don't need to know what I need to have to make me authentic. I don't need to have
I think it's in the heart.
Tribe. Yeah. And I feel like we are in that generation where back in the days, yes, you know, tribes, there are these tribes, but right now intermarriages are happening.
Yes.
Cultural integration, businesses, people are working together despite from different backgrounds, and even conversations we're having. And hello, I identify as a Pan-African, right?
I do too.
But it doesn't say that we have to have like a certain scar somewhere or look a certain way to be Pan-African. As long as you live by the spirit, you believe in the spirit of Ubuntu, you know, I am because you are and you are because I am. Case closed, finished, move on to the next.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a bit about, you know, a lot of women struggle. Even to me, when I just started talking to you, I told you about it. Like these days, a lot of my friends are having conversations on freezing our eggs. And, you know, like as long as you are past 25 and above, and if you don't have kids, you don't have a husband, it's such like an issue. And I'm just like, well, you could actually give us your husbands anyway. But basically, there's this pressure of women being mothers.
Yes.
You know, culture, family, they forget about all the other issues that women have to go through. And they just put pressure on as long as you might achieve everything. I remember very well, Farah, when my late mom passed away. So 7 days later, we went to Mombasa, and I had family coming over to say hi to me and everything and saying sorry. And a few aunties came to me and said, oh my God, it's so sad. Your mom's died and now you're going to sleep in bed alone if you had a husband and kids. And I was like, what? I'm in the middle of really grieving, and they're highlighting the fact that I don't have kids. I want us to talk about that because you talked about that in Real Housewives of Nairobi. And I do believe that's very powerful because it came out very powerful. And I feel like some of the casts wanted to like just turn it around, and I didn't like that. But I like the fact, like at the end, some apologized, which I don't think it was sincere. But anyway, we'll leave that. But I want you to talk about that. You talked about, you know, freezing your eggs and having that choice. So please, can you like?
Yeah, and that was conscious, actually. I wanted to put that conversation. And, you know, part of also being on the show was to talk about aging. You know, that came up a lot. A lot about just building muscle and why it's important. We can definitely talk about some of that. And yeah, freezing eggs. And it was something that I had the good fortune. Look, it's expensive. It's not cheap. But the science of it is when you actually hit 30, your eggs are not really, they're starting to die already and not be viable options. So I froze mine at 37.
Okay.
And that was quite late, but that was because my relationship was ending and my whole life was transitioning when I was leaving the US. I had very good insurance, so I was lucky that, you know, a lot of it was paid for, which is the issue, but there are, you know, now there are alternatives locally available. At the time, I was living there, so that's why I did it.
Yeah.
But I have met people who own fertility clinics. I think it is something that, if anyone's out there listening, maybe funding for women freezing their eggs could be a nice opportunity. So I put that out there, but it is expensive, and then you have to pay for freezing them every year, which also adds up. So the decision for me at the time was, oh my gosh, I'm ending a relationship. I have to rebuild myself because I need to support myself. Like I'm no longer in the marital relationship where we're supporting each other. I have to be my own person now and rebuild. And thank goodness for my education. I was able to rebuild and move to Kenya and get a job and rebuild my chapter 2. And then really it was kind of, it's insurance. It's like, okay. And I kept it all these years because I'm like, I'm going to meet the right guy. I'm going to meet the right guy. But you know, when I came back to Kenya and after my marriage ended, because I was with someone who had bipolar. It was not like a natural ending in the sense of I was with someone who had mental health issues. And I know that's a big thing for you. So at that time, I was also grieving the end of a relationship that I thought I'm living the American dream. We both had his and her BMWs. We both had great jobs. And this dream that we had just came crashing down because of mental health, really. You know, he was ill and it really tore the relationship apart. So I was grieving that. I was grieving the life I had. I was grieving everything we built, what I thought would be ever after. And I really wasn't ready to get into another relationship. I actually think they say women take longer to get into another relationship after a breakup than men do, right? So it took me a while. I think some of the bodybuilding was to start building this tough exterior around me. Like when people now ask me, why would you do that? And I was like, I don't know. But as I now think about it, it was, I didn't ever want to be in that position again. I started building my life, my exterior, my interior, I needed to be this strong woman. And I think everyone goes through something where you think it's the end, but it's like, you know, Phoenix Rising is my other brand, which is, you know, you have to go through this to come out on the other side and be stronger. And that got me to be stronger. But so in the meantime, these eggs are sitting in a fridge and, you know, I just thought, I'm going to meet, and I still haven't met the right. And now I don't know if it's too old, right? You know, if I'm too old to have, and I've been debating the situation. And as the Real Housewives came up, I just come back from the US, going to see the doctor there. I was told I can still carry the children if I want. Physically, I'm able to. It was just like, well, do I want to do it solo? And then I see my sister, you know, in her marriage with her child, and it's a lot of work. I mean, I know we have supports here, but it's a lot of work. So the decision to have a child, and I know many of my friends have had children on their own, even in the US without support. It's a big decision. Yeah, and all women have to go through this. And it's really, again, consciousness. Sit back and go, okay, I'm putting kids on the back burner because I'm now focused on this, but I know I'm putting them, but how can I get some insurance so I can pick up that ball? So it's that whole, so it's just about being conscious. And I just I guess, fortunately did that. And I have that option now to use the eggs. And so the process really is, you know, you go get tested, you make sure your eggs are fine. And then it's like a 30-day process. They shoot you up with different hormones. You extra ovulate, like you super ovulate, and then they extract the egg. So it's not an easy process. You know, you blow up in the process. Your hormones are out of whack. And, but in the end, you ensure yourself that, you know, when you meet the right person, or if you want to have them on your own, because women are having children on their own now, you're able to. But yeah, I wanted to just talk about it on the show and just put it out there. And I'm glad people heard it.
Yeah, people heard it. I did. I even started thinking, I remember I was one morning, I was working out and I told a friend of mine, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually thinking about if it doesn't happen, because clearly what we have out here that we consider, you know, men, it's a challenge. So I'm just like, you know what? If I make my own money and I'm able to, why not? So I could think about it. And this is something that, especially for a Swahili girl like myself, to think about something like that. I'm sure if I tell my family, they'll think I'm crazy.
Yes.
But it's something that in my circles, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
It's something that you talked about it, and so many other women are talking, and getting comfortable. I think that's the word, just getting comfortable.
And having the support. So that's going to need a lot of support.
Yeah.
But also the support in school. So one of my
Yeah.
friends who had a child on her own, I mean, the thing is, our world is still built on a two-parent system, a dad and a mom. So when it's Father's Day, for instance, who's going to go for the baby? And so she felt that. Like she felt being the single mom, being like, okay, you know, she felt the pain of her child not having a dad. But then maybe there's another person that goes, or schools have to be more sensitive, and we're definitely not there here. Definitely not, right?
We're not.
So it's complicated, but I guess the thing is, science has come a way that allows you to do it. I mean, initially it was for women with cancer that they were doing the freezing, but there are clinics in Kenya that do it, and so I think it's something that it's an option. I think it's. And life is always knowing about what your options are.
And you know, you talked about, you know, building yourself back from, like, you know, your can I say, like, it didn't work out.
Yes.
What message do you have for, like, women who are actually struggling with doing that? Like, because I know for a fact that I struggled, and I love how when I sat here, you're like, are you back now?
Yes.
Like, are you okay? Because I struggled, and for me, it wasn't because of a relationship, but it was more of, I was in such a high-flying job, very public, both on a Pan-African country level and global. And then in front of everyone, I fell. I didn't fall, but like it was taken away, and I fell mentally.
Yes.
And, you know, so what would you tell? Because building yourself back, it's hard.
It's hard. We all have issues. We all have challenges we have to get through. Knowing that you'll get out on the other end, you know, it's like believing in that. You've got to have faith. Faith in God, faith in the universe. You're not given more than you can handle. I've always believed that. And, you know, you're going to just pull up your pants and, you know, do it. And sometimes it's hard. For me, having sports or wellness or running, I know at that time I started running more because it was helping my mental health. I really do see physical fitness as a way to pick yourself up, because it does help you elevate your mood. And then that transmits to the rest of your life. And also my bodybuilding structure has actually helped my work structure. You know, the two feed into each other. So when you improve, so if you start working out, for instance, you're feeling really horrible and you have to drag yourself to the gym, then you'll start doing that. Then you might want to eat better and maybe drink better. So your whole you start changing, you yourself start changing. And I'll give you an example. I worked with a nonprofit in the US called Back on My Feet. And it was very early on. And this nonprofit basically was working with basically people who were addicts in a shelter. And what happened is there was a woman who used to be a marathon runner, and she'd run around the shelter, and these guys would start running with her. And then over time, she's like, oh, and then she started seeing that their moods was improving, right? She's like, okay, interesting. So she actually then created a foundation. She's a super fundraiser, this woman. And she created a foundation and called Back on My Feet. And what they did was they enlisted people in this shelter into a program. And it involved basically you have to run a certain number of kilometers and a run, like you do like a 10K run or a half a marathon or whatever, and you graduate through the program. And when you get to the end of it, so you have to show up every day to the run, meaning you're not sleeping, you're being disciplined. There's a whole bunch of steps. And when you get it to the end of it, they gave them $1,000 to go pay your rent, go get educated. And she graduated people through this program. And what she saw was the benefit of the running, how it changed the mental state, how it improved it, how they became goal-driven, and it got them out of the rut. So that was a very, I guess, strong example to me of how exercise helps mental health. And it is one of the tools. And I definitely use that. So what I said is when I was getting out of there, I know I picked up my physical journey. It helped me get through that time. And I actually probably think I became a bodybuilder because I was looking for somewhere to bring myself up. And I already liked exercise. You know, it's just by accident I fell into bodybuilding, which now is a big blessing, to be honest.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think we've gotten to this point where I wish I had more time, but we're at a point where I'm just curious. From everything we've discussed, and all the accolades you carry, and every intentionality that you have within yourself, knowing that this is a Pan-African audience, what message do you have for them? Because this is about Farah.
It's about Farah. So based on my experience, this is really what I'd like to share as kind of a summary of what we talked about. One, break the mold, break the label if you have to, bust the stereotypes. In doing that and in being outside of your comfort zone and trying new things, that's where the power is. That's the first thing I'd say. Second, we didn't really touch on it, but find a mentor if you don't know what you're doing. I have a coach for bodybuilding. You know, if you need to find someone to get you where you are, you're not sure, and try and surround yourself with good people. It doesn't have to just be women or men. You've got to work your network and build your community and support around you. The other thing I'd say is, you know, really be conscious, as we've talked about, conscious about where your life is going, conscious about, are you in a box because you've been told to be in that box? Could you be doing something else? And sometimes, yes, when you're younger, it's about the security and yes, getting the food to the table. Okay, we understand that. So there's a pressure. Maybe you can't be conscious. But at some point, you still got to think about it. And even when you're doing that, be conscious about which of the balls in my life are falling. Like, is it the relationship? Is it the children? So life is complicated. It's a difficult journey. You've got to figure out how to find your balance. And also try and find your higher purpose, live your higher purpose, and whether it's a Pan-African conversation you want to be a part of, and how are you adding to this conversation? Where do you see yourself? You know, you're consciously in this country and on this continent. Are you someone who's adding value to this continent in this country? So these are some of the things. Look, it's a long conversation. There's so much I have to say, but I really, over time, have realized that inauthenticity is our strength, in consciousness is our strength, and that's why, you know, if you're living somebody else's life, if you're in a box that you've been put in the end, you're going to break out of it. And so just be open to those opportunities, those experiences, and yeah, look to find people to help you if you're not sure how to get out of that box. And also, if you're suffering from, you know, mental health issues, I think reach out. Like we didn't talk so much about mental health, but I've come from a place where I've been a caregiver on mental health issues. And it really is something where you're not alone. So on all these issues, find a mentor, find help. Our communities are strong and we need to tap into those and support each other.
Yeah. All right. Be conscious, be open to opportunities, never stop, keep going, but also be intentional about your mental health. These are some of the things that we spoke about with Farah. There's a lot more that she said, which I hope you will be listening to this episode, because it's an episode that is enriching, an episode that is real, but an episode that is intentional. Intentional in becoming who you want to be and intentional about achieving what you want to achieve. So Farah, thank you very much.
So much.
This was amazing. This was lovely. And I was just telling you off camera, you need to speak on global platforms, Definitely. On any platform, because you have this strength, you have this strategic way of thinking that can actually make people think twice about what they do and who they are.
I really feel that. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. And to everyone, please remember that I'm your host, Nadia Abdallah, and this is the African Power Hour. Till next time.